Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Alright, so I work as a freelance contractor, taking work wherever I can find it. Usually it's given to me by members of a church a friend attends. He recommends me whenever somebody says that they need work done. Anyways, my latest job has been insulating the underside of the floors of an older house. I think it was built around the 1950s, judging by the interior design. Anyways, when I work, I don't work every day since I live in Washington. I can't work with insulation if it's raining, or if it has rained in the past few days, since the underside of the house doesn't drain very well and it just pools. But I'll get back to that later. I put on this fairly warm coverall, a big hoodie, rubber gloves, the whole 9 yards to keep me clean. I've been down there working maybe 4 times now, and I haven't had any problems, until lately. The further into the house I insulate, the weirder things I find. I found an old mason jar with some weird shit inside of it. Kind of smelled fruity, but it had an odd smell to it too, like maybe it was rotten, but worse, you know. So I brought that up when I was done for the day, and decided to keep it. It is pretty cool after all. As work continued and I got deeper under the house, I found a light bulb encrusted with dirt. Nothing absolutely amazing, but it was still kind of cool. Brought it out and home with me. Don't ask me why. I like cool old stuff. Later that night I woke up to piss, and the thing was rolling around the plug ever so slightly, which freaked me out. So I set it up against something to prevent it from rolling, which may or may not have been because of external causes. I wasn't going to jump to conclusions that it was the paranormal. Either way, I finished pissing and came back out and crawled back into bed. Woke up the next morning and everything was as I left it. The next time I went to work, I was getting a little worried. I kept thinking in the back of my mind, you shouldn't have taken those things. You should have left them there. There was no need to bring them out. I tried to keep my mind off of it by singing. Every time I paused, I kept thinking, why did you take them? So I'm crawling in the mud and insulating, and I find a pretty ornate bottle. I knew I shouldn't have taken it, but I did. It was just too pretty to leave down there in the mud. When I had finished for the day and I had everything packed up and whatnot, I went home and took out the bottle. The top had this little brass pop top like on shampoo bottles or certain kinds of lighters. Either way, years of being down there rusted it shut. So I got out my pliers, grabbed a hold, and eventually worked the top off. I took a whiff and it smelled so bad, but yet it smelled good at the same time. Like cologne, but also of shit. I went over to the sink and poured it out. Sure, it stank to hell, but the bottle was cool. I commenced to sleep like a baby, but I woke up in the morning with the smell of hot, wet ass in my nose. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. If you don't, imagine a pile of cow shit that's been sitting in the sun for a week, baking in over 100 degrees heat. So I went into the bathroom expecting to see that the toilet had been clogged, but there was nothing in there. So I went to brush my teeth, and this thick black sludge was bubbling out of the drain, the same drain I poured the cologne down. But me being the let's not jump to conclusions person that I am, I suspected that something had clogged. Maybe it was my hair from shaving, I don't know. Anything that would put my mind at rest. Skip ahead about a week. Back under the house, attempting to concentrate as hard as I can on the job, get it done as fast as I can, and get out. I hear something splash from the other side of the house. I flip shit and point my flashlight, my headlamp, and my flood lamp at the water. See 2 glowing dots staring at me. I'm backing up against the wall. The dots are getting closer. I hit the wall. Dots still coming. Finally, the body the dots are attached to come into the light. It was the homeowner's cat. I let out a huge sigh, grabbed the cat and brought it back above ground and blocked off the entrance. The wind blew over the piece of wood I set up to keep the cat from exploring. So I headed back down and was almost done for the day. Batteries in the flashlight were dying and it was getting dark out when I heard ever so quietly, "Naughty boys steal things that don't belong to them." I froze, dead still, listening and praying that it was just my imagination. Didn't move for a good 45 seconds. Gathered up my shit and bolted as fast as I could army crawl out of there. Forgot to mention, clearance down there is like 1.5 feet at most, but there's so many pipes and vents and shit that the only way to get around is crawling on your elbows / hands and knees at places. I smash the piece of wood out of the way and shoot out of the crawl space like a monkey from hell. Not sure what that means. Tried to think of clever analogy for super fucking fast, but I swear as I was crawling out of there, I felt something spank my ass. I got out and shot my floodlight down the hole, but nothing was there. I covered that hole up and stuck a cinder block in front of the board, packed up, and went home. When I got home, I took everything that I found down there and put them in a box. I told myself, you're taking this shit back down there, finishing the job, getting your money, and never going there again. Fast forward maybe 3 or 4 days, can't remember. Have box in the truck and going to work on the guy's insulation. I was almost done and I just wanted to finish the job, get my money, and never set eyes on that house again. Gear up, get the box of shit, head down. Put things from the box back where I found them. A jar of fruity shit went on the wall closest to the opening, nudged in a corner. The light bulb was against the back wall, laying in the dirt. The cologne bottle was in the middle-ish, half buried. I felt good about doing that, returning things to their rightful place, even though they were junk and nobody would know they were gone. Something about having them just didn't feel right. Mainly the fucked up whisper voice telling me that stealing is bad, but I like telling myself that I'm a good person. It helps with the coping. Either way, I finished the insulating and was happily crawling out when I heard, "Thank you for returning my belongings." I shined my lights everywhere, flooding the crawl space with light, but there was no one there. I bolted out of the crawl space, covered it with plywood, and nailed it in place. I got my money and went home. And there's my creepy story, Anon. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I hated experiencing it.
/x/ I think my office is haunted. I work as a freelancer in advertising. It's something I only recently got into after a series of unfortunate events saw me homeless and bottoming out of university in my 3rd year, 4-year course. I do visualizing, scamping, and storyboarding for the most part, and through some unusual good luck, I was able to get my foot in the door at one of London's larger and more prestigious agencies. I have access to the office via keyless entry around the clock. Security never bothers me if I go in late at night. I just tell them I'm a freelancer delivering art. In fact, I've been working on a side project providing cover and promotional art for a video game using the company's digital equipment, so I've been pulling some late nights in that office. During the week, it's fine. There's cleaning staff in the building round the clock. Also, there's usually 1 or 2 other souls in the building pulling an all-nighter to get work finished. It's the weekend that's the problem. Firstly, a few things you should know about this office. 1. It's a very modern building. I'd say it can't be more than 10 years old. Everything is glass and steel, marble and minimalist wooden fixtures. Even so, it's got more than a few squeaky floorboards under the carpeting on my floor. 2. Being such a modern building, everything from the locks to the lighting is state-of-the-art. The lights aren't on switches, but rather controlled entirely by motion sensors. They're incredibly sensitive. Half an inch of movement is enough to turn them on. 3 weeks ago, in the office on Sunday night, working away on Wacom tablet creating art assets in Photoshop. The only lights on are the ones around my desk, an island of light in the pitch darkness of an empty office. Only other people in the building are 2 security guards in the lobby 4 floors down. Keep hearing noises from the far end of the office. Whatever. The floor is creaky anyway. The building is just settling. Noises intensify as night goes on, begin to sound exactly like footsteps. But none of the lights are on. Screw this. I am going to see if somebody is up there. Walk to the far end of the office. Lights turn on as I walk towards them. Nobody there. The office is completely empty. As I turn, I notice in a dark corner one of the computers has apparently been left on. Screen is cycling through primary colors. As I am looking at it, it stops on red. Red gets darker as I stare at it. Retreat to workstation, continue working. Later that very same evening, it is 1 a.m., need food and drink. There's a bar next to the main entrance to the office on this floor with fresh fruit, a coffee machine, fridges, etc. Go there to get a cup of tea and some fruit. While I'm pouring my tea, I can hear a swivel chair caster squeaking behind me. Turn around. Lights are off. Investigate. Nothing is moving. None of the computers in this area are still on. There's no desk fans, office toys, etc. that could be making this sound, yet I can still hear it, right next to me. While I am standing there confused, I hear a different noise behind me. Turn around to see an alcove with a massive, long desk used for standing round table planning and discussions. Nothing on desk except for a vintage 50s tin plate robot that has inexplicably turned itself on and started moving down the desk towards me. Pack things and leave immediately. Last Sunday, in the office working late again. Wonder if anything weird is going to happen this time. Office is nice and quiet. Maybe it was just my imagination last time. Plowing through work. 10 minutes to midnight, the temperature suddenly drops through the floor. I was comfortably working all night in a t-shirt, suddenly having to wrap myself up in a fleece and shivering. It is so cold. Noises begin. Printer motors randomly starting and stopping, pencils rattling in cups at empty desks, etc. It is 1 a.m. I should probably be leaving anyway, and this is a sign that either this office wants to eat me or I am overtired and imagining things. Decide to stop at a bar to grab a couple of bananas on the way out, then take the stairs to the rear exit at the far end of the office. Make it halfway from the desk at one end of the office to the bar in the middle of the office, and the expensive motion-sensitive lighting stops working. They were working perfectly when I walked in. Now I'm standing underneath them, jumping and waving my arms, and they are not turning on. Stare into pitch black ahead. Decide to take the lift instead. Bar also accessible from the door leading to lifts. Make another attempt. Only the light above the door leading to the lifts will turn on. All other lights in this floor's reception area also refusing to turn on. Take lift to the ground floor and double time it out of there. I don't normally buy into the idea of the paranormal, and everything else could be written off as the product of an overactive imagination, but I have no explanation for the lights not turning on. That really freaked me out. Is my office haunted?
It's not a haunting. It's a type of environmental recording. Unusual for new buildings, but not impossible. What it sounds like is all the stress and constant work, people pulling late nights, has left a mark on the building. Stress, particularly, can imprint on buildings. Everything you experienced is caused by the building replaying multiple days and months at the same time. Sort of like if you went into the music library on your computer and played every song at once. No dead spirits, no demons. Just the building replaying the actions of 10 years of stressed workers who came before you. The reason you didn't see anything much in detail was because so many different instances were playing at once.
I run a game store in the middle of nowhere. Before I bought the building, it was a bar. Before that, it was a diner. Before that, it was just a pair of apartments. I got it super cheap because when it was apartments, a man killed his wife in one of them. When it was a diner, a cook killed his boss. When it was a bar, a biker lost his shit and killed 3 other bikers. I didn't learn any of this before I bought it, but So I'm closing up shop one night, had a good day and sold a lot of shit, mostly old games that are pure profit. Feeling great. I have barred windows and door frames from when it used to be a bar, so this place is like a fortress. It's also a wide open store with no hiding places, so it's easy to see if the store is empty or not. The stock room is locked down, empty. The store floor is empty. I'm the only one who worked today. It's just me and my woman who run it. so I'm the only one on the planet with keys. I lock that shit up and turn off the lights. The light switches are near the front door behind a little metal panel. I have it hidden behind a Borderlands poster currently. The latch is stiff though, so it makes a loud smack when you open or close it. I turn off the lights and close the hatch, leave, lock that shit up. I'm walking to my car, about to get in, when I hear the latch smack open and the lights come on. I tear ass back up to the store, and as I'm unlocking the door, I hear the latch close. I bust that shit open with my gun in my hand. Because I carry heat, if anyone is going to be getting killed in this joint, it's going to be me doing the killing. And there's nobody. The lights are back on. My Borderlands poster is on the ground and the metal door is closed. I open it to turn the lights back off and the metal is ice cold to the touch. Like fucking cold as a freezer floor cold. I look up and the door to the stockroom is open, thinking maybe someone turned the lights on so they could raid my shit. I walk over to the door, gun at the ready. The lights in the stockroom come on as I'm talking to the door. Now the light switch in the stockroom is on the back wall, because it used to have a back door, and the switch was by the back door. I walk into the room, gun up, and yell, "If anyone is in here, I will fucking kill you if you come at me." A shelf in the back of the room falls over. I walk back over to it, but there's nothing else there. I cleared that place, but there was nobody else there.
It was late Thursday night, and I was shutting all of the lights off level by level. It was 7 stories high, and there were almost always people who had fallen asleep in a book somewhere. So you had to go through all the private study rooms, check the bathrooms, make sure no one was still around when you locked up. One night I was on level 7, which was where the visual media stuff was kept. There was never anyone up there, but it always paid to check. After doing a quick sweep of all the study rooms, desks, etc., and calling out for anyone still up there, I felt satisfied it was empty. I locked all the doors from the stairwell and went down to level 6. 6 was where all the popular literature was kept, so there were always a bunch of misplaced books to pack away in their proper places. On this evening, I came across something which seemed only vaguely unusual at the time. A pile of stacked books in the far left corner of one study room. About 9, stacked in a little tower. I entered, picked them up, and put them in their places. I don't remember all of the books, but know that amongst them was Labyrinths by Borges, something by Philip K. Dick, and a French-language edition of The Drowned World by Ballard. All these books were located in broadly spread-out sections of the library. Borges was at the north end, Dick in sci-fi, and Ballard in the French-language section. As I went about putting these books away, I became aware, at first only vaguely, but with growing clarity, the sound of footsteps. At first I thought somebody was still hanging around, possibly a cleaner or something, so I called out. No response. The footsteps were increasingly apparent. Not loud exactly, but definitely not of my own imagining either. Being of an empirical mind, I decided to check once more every little bit of level 6, all to no avail. As the footsteps became great thumps, I realized they were coming from up above. I had locked someone in on level 7. I rushed upstairs, at this stage entirely convinced that I had overlooked some poor kid studying late. Fumbled with the keys, entered the room, and called out. I was greeted with silence. No footfall, no reply. All at once, a coldness rushed through me and hung in my stomach. I called out a few more times, frantically turning on lights, checking every possible nook and cranny. I found no one. All the while I felt sick, certain I had heard movement, certain there was someone else on level 7 with me. All I found was a single open window. Whether I had closed it or not before was uncertain and unimportant. Something about it, with the wind making the curtain move softly, and the drizzle of the rain outside filtering in, only added to my growing sense of unease. By some strength of resolve, I hurriedly closed it, and looked out at the city lights down below, the skyscrapers reflected in the harbor mist. In the rain, the entire sky beyond was just black with no stars. After spending a few minutes searching level 7, I began to feel too ill to even barely turn corners. So petrified was I that the other would show themselves. So once more, I locked all the doors and descended into level 6. After another brief check of the bathrooms, I was ready to shrug it off, possibly out of sheer tiredness. However, as I passed the French language section, I noticed something. The drowned world was not there anymore. I pulled apart the books, checked the floor in case it had slipped off, somehow, and then practically sprinted to the study room. There, sure as day, were all of the 9 books I had put away, stacked in the corner just as before, in the exact same order. I just stared for a while. I had locked 6 on my way out. Even if there was somebody in there with me, how could they have made their way through the shelves, finding each book, and assembling their little tower in silence before I came back? Before I could even begin to analyze the situation, there was a crash from upstairs. The footfall came down louder than before, like someone was throwing themselves against walls or stamping against the ground. Immediately, I descended every single level. I didn't dare check another floor, simply locked the doors and abandoned the place as fast as I possibly could. And that is the end of my story. I can offer nothing as an explanation or conclusion. I related the incident to some other staff who said they had experienced nothing of the sort. I never did the late shift alone after that. I never saw the books arranged in that pile again. At the end of the year, I stopped working and moved away. This took place at Victoria University, Wellington, New Zealand, if anyone cares to know.
I used to work as a projectionist at a movie theater. Like stage theaters, cineplexes tend to have a reputation for strange happenings, and this one was no different. I had 2 coworkers tell me about ghostly encounters. One saw a woman in the employee-only hallway while taking out the trash who rounded a corner and disappeared. The other was an usher who was waiting for the last guest to leave the auditorium during credits before starting to clean. When he came down and turned to go out the door, the guest asked the usher where the woman had gone. The usher said, "What woman?" And the guy said that a moment earlier he had looked around to see if he was the last person left and saw a woman sitting in the back row. Neither he nor the usher had seen her leave, and she would have had to walk right past the usher on her way out. Anyway, I used to frequently hear a female voice when I was up in the projection booth by myself. The walls are all essentially soundproofed, so the movies don't interfere with each other. So it wasn't likely a movie I was hearing, not to mention that it would frequently be saying my name. The first time I saw a physical event was when I came in the morning and the desk lamp was unplugged, and on the floor a good 6 or 7 feet away from the desk where it had been when I left the night before. The only people in the theater between when I left and came back were the night cleaners, and they didn't have access to the booth, which also had its own alarm and motion sensors at the doors. Then a few months later, I was building a movie when a 2-inch square piece of plywood, which had formerly been used to level a wobbly table and was now sitting on the desk, whizzed past my head as though it had been thrown at me. There were a few other events that happened over the years, but honestly by that point I was so used to them that I can't even recall the details off the top of my head.
I once worked security at a large local hospital. I mostly worked third shift from 9:05 a.m. because it worked with my school schedule, and there were far fewer people to deal with than in the day shifts. I often heard sounds coming from places where sounds shouldn't be coming from. But all hospitals have shit like that, and most are probably explainable. Of all the hospital grounds, the basement is the worst at night because absolutely no one is down there working. Engineering takes up most of the space as well as storage, but the morgue and autopsy are down there as well. Early one morning I'm doing rounds, and I decide to start in the basement and work my way up to the top floors of the hospital and end in the ER. I take the stairs because the lights for the front hallway are kept off in the basement at night, and the switches are located down near the bottom of the steps across from the entrance to the morgue. The lights on the back hallways are also off, and kept off, because we're not told to walk them, so we don't. We just check the locks on pathology, turn the lights back off, and leave. I head down the main stairs and stop at the bottom and turn on the lights to the front hallway. I check the locks on autopsy and the morgue entrance, look down both ends of the halls, and then turn around to turn off the lights and start back up the stairs. As soon as I cut the lights, I hear scuttling noises coming from the end of the hallway that turns down towards the back end of the basement, where engineering and storage are located. I turn the lights back on and I walk down towards where I heard the sound. I reach the end of the front hallway where it turns off left onto another longer, darker hallway lined with random equipment and boxes. No scuttling sounds. I stare off into the darkness trying to get my eyes to adjust, willing something, anything to make a sound. After a minute or so, I just assume it's some rodents and turn back toward the stairs to leave. I get just to where the light from the stairs reaches into the darkness, about halfway between the darkened hallway and the stairs, when I hear a voice say, "Hey," from far down the darkened hallway behind me. I stop, piss myself a little, then muster up the courage to turn back and check out the sound. I walk the entire length of halls, all the way back to parts of the basement I've never been to before. Doors are shut and locked, no animals, no people, no hiding places. I make up my mind that I'm hearing things and start walking back towards the stairs. I get to almost the exact same spot as before when I hear the "hey" again in the same volume, cadence, and asexual tone as before. I keep walking. I reach the entrance to the morgue and start to turn left to head up the stairs when I hear the "hey" again, only it's the same volume as before, and I'm easily 25 yards past where I last heard it. I hit the light switch and haul ass upstairs. I decided to head over to HQ to talk to the desk sergeant about what happened. I figure at the very least he'll send someone down with me to check it out in case there is someone down there prowling about, and I just happen to miss them during my search. He listens intently to my story, and then laughs at me when I finish. He tells me that he's surprised I'm only just now experiencing the caller in the basement, and then goes on to explain that they don't tell us to go searching off down the back hallways because of it. Just check the locks and autopsy in the morgue and get the fuck out. I ask him what other experiences that he'd be surprised I haven't encountered yet. He shakes his head and says, "If I told you, then you'd probably not come back to work tomorrow. Just expect some unexpected shit." From that day on, I ignored everything I heard at night in the basement, and I heard quite a few strange sounds, but I never heard the caller again.
I used to see stuff when I was about 12 that I was convinced were ghosts at the time. Not so sure anymore, though. They probably won't be that creepy to anyone else, but they freaked me right the hell out when they happened. So here goes. The first time I saw a ghost was a couple months after my dad died. I don't see them anymore, so now I think the ghosts were just my head being messed up from grief. I was walking by my sister's room and saw a cat run in and go under the couch. It wasn't supposed to be in there, so I went in to get it so I would close the door. I turned on the lights and looked for the cat, but couldn't find it anywhere. I was baffled because I was so sure I had seen it. Another time when I walked into a room, at a glance I saw 3 cats. I was certain I had seen 3, but my family only had 2 cats. When I looked back, I just saw 2. Then another time, one of our cats was sick and refused to move from the couch in the basement. For some reason, he'd only get up to eat when someone came down to visit him. Otherwise, his food would be left untouched. I slept on the basement floor for a few weeks until he got better, during which time I saw the weird ghost cat thing more often than I ever had, almost every night. One time I was laying on my side and there was a bit of light from the TV, and suddenly this cat came from behind and its face was hovering right over my head. I turned over wondering why my cat had come over to me, since he hardly ever moved from the couch. The thing disappeared as soon as I turned over, and my cat was still asleep on the couch. Occasionally I'd see people as well. They were like completely black silhouettes. I thought I was seeing my dad's ghost. The cat ghost thing was also like a silhouette, but since both my cats had dark fur, I would easily mistake it for one of them. Anyway, this all probably sounds stupid to anyone else, but the reason it freaked me out was because it happened so often, and at first I would think that what I was seeing was real. Sometimes the person ghost would make me think there was a stranger in the house until it disappeared a moment later. And one unrelated one, once when I was sleeping on the living room couch, one of the plants kept rustling loudly every once in a while, like someone was stepping through it or walking by it. Every time I would turn on the lights to investigate, and neither of the cats were around, and there were no windows open to blow wind, so I'm still not sure what that was about.
I used to work late nights in a very old building. I did setup, takedown for banquets, receptions, etc. I typically started work at about midnight and worked until about 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. The hours really depended on the type of event. When I first started, I always worked as part of a crew, typically my boss and 2 or 3 other people. But after I'd been there about a year, my boss always had me work by myself. Sometimes I was the only person in the entire complex, probably 7 or 8 acres of connected buildings, I guess, besides the security guard up front. Sometimes the rest of the crew was in the other room, which was maybe 300 yards away. I'm 95% sure that this stuff just happens when you're doing physically exhausting work all by yourself for several hours in a dark building at 3 a.m. But I would hear shit all the time. Mostly, I would faintly hear someone say my name, but you could never be sure. I'd also frequently get the sensation that I was being watched. Sometimes I'd see movement out of the corners of my eye, but nothing concrete. I worked there for about 2 years and never got used to it. My brother had worked doing the same thing before. I asked him if he ever had similar things happen to him. He said it happened all the time. I also talked to my boss about it. He said he never really noticed anything, but that other people did all the time. He also said the place had once been a factory and that it was supposed to be haunted by a burned guy who had fallen into a furnace there. I never saw any burned ghosts. Once I got scared shitless by a mannequin that I had forgot was there, but that was pretty funny.
I work in a restaurant bar, and there have been some odd occurrences. Don't really believe in ghosts, and none of it is really scary, but some of it is really weird. Since I've started working there, too many years ago, we've had things falling off of shelves when nobody is close to them. Fair enough. A few times it was stuff I was sure was pretty far back from the edge of the shelf, but hey, maybe the shelves are uneven. But we've still always kinda half-joked about it being haunted. One time it was a slow lunch. Monday, maybe. There were no customers yet, and the waitresses were all chatting at the bar about their drunk, abusive boyfriends and how they're gonna change this time or some stupid shit. All cooks are male, and in the kitchen, the jukebox was off, so it was pretty quiet. Suddenly, we all hear a loud, breaking glass sound from the women's bathroom. Go in there. The big mirror was about 4 feet wide by 3 feet tall. Had fucking exploded all over the place. The entire bathroom was covered in glass in all directions like it had just blew out. The thing had been there for years with no problems, and nobody was in the bathroom. The mirror incident just happened to have occurred about a month after one of our co-workers died of what we think was an OxyContin overdose. He and another cook were living together. One morning, the other cook wakes up to find him lying face down, dead on the living room floor. Rumor is he was there with one of the regulars from the bar, snorting oxy. Dude OD'd, and the regular guy just let himself out and left the guy dying on the floor. As far as any of us know/knew, the guy didn't normally even fuck with that shit, probably why it killed him. Also, the guy that died used to hit on all the girls and always got rejected. Anyways, the weirdest incident for me was the time that I actually saw a Parmesan cheese shaker fly off of a counter by itself. Until this point, I had heard things fall, but this was my first time actually witnessing it, and it was fucking weird. It was a glass container that was thicker at the bottom than at the top, so it wasn't at all top-heavy or anything. I saw a bit of movement out of the corner of my eye and looked over just in time to see this thing fly right off the counter. Again, it wasn't even close to the edge. It had to go about a foot just to get to the edge. It shattered all over the floor. I'm immediately like, holy shit, did anyone just see that besides me? That was crazy. And another guy responded, yeah, I just watched it fly across the counter. That guy died of an overdose recently, too. Not that that is some crazy twist or anything, it's totally unrelated. But he was the third person that has worked there in the past few years to die of an OD. The place is owned by these two Italians brothers who are second-generation restaurant owners. Their dad started the business, and he's this old Italian guy with a kind of thick accent. Rumor around town is that they are mobsters, but I've worked for them long enough to know what is probably closer to the truth. The dad got the money to open his first restaurant from the mob, so maybe there's some bodies under the place. Maybe one of my dead co-workers is doing something. Maybe there's a logical explanation for everything, I don't know, but there are strange things afoot at that place.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.